Most men believe that if they pull back emotionally, they will automatically lose her. So they keep explaining, keep reassuring, keep checking in, and keep giving more even when they feel it's not being returned. What they don't realize is that this constant emotional availability slowly removes all mystery, all tension, and all desire. Detachment is not about becoming cold or distant. It's about removing emotional dependency. There is a massive difference between caring and clinging, and women feel that difference instantly. When you are emotionally attached in an unhealthy way, your mood begins to depend on her responses. If she texts late, you feel anxious. If she pulls back, you panic. If she acts unsure, you try harder. That behavior communicates something without words, that your emotional stability is in her hands. And once a woman feels that kind of responsibility, attraction starts to fade, not because she's cruel, but because desire doesn't grow where pressure exists. Healthy detachment means you stop handing over control of your emotions. You don't stop caring, you stop chasing reassurance. You don't disappear, you simply stop over investing. You respond instead of reacting. You listen instead of explaining. You allow space instead of filling every silence with words. And in that space, something powerful begins to happen. When you are no longer emotionally flooding the connection, she starts to feel the shift. She notices that you're calmer, less reactive, more grounded. You're not trying to convince her of anything. You're not trying to fix her moods. You're not trying to win her back every time she seems distant. This creates emotional contrast. She remembers how it felt when you were fully present, and now she feels the absence of that energy, but without hostility, without drama. Detachment works because it triggers reflection, not resistance. If you pull away with anger or bitterness, she feels relief. But if you pull back with self respect and calm, she feels curiosity. Her mind starts asking questions. Why isn't he chasing? Why isn't he upset? Why does he seem okay? And those questions keep you alive, and her thoughts far more than any message ever could. This is where most men make a mistake. They think detachment means ignoring her or acting cold. That's not strength, that's insecurity disguised as control. Real detachment is subtle. You still show warmth when you speak, you still listen. You're just no longer emotionally needy. You don't rush to reply to prove interest. You don't overshare to feel close. You don't demand clarity to feel safe. As you detach emotionally, your energy changes. Your words carry more weight because there are fewer of them. Your presence feels stronger because it's no longer constant. And when your presence becomes rare, it becomes valuable. Women don't miss men who are always available. They miss men whose presence felt grounding and then suddenly isn't there in the same way. This also forces her to step into her own emotions. When you stop doing all the emotional work, she has space to feel, to wonder, to miss, to realize what your calm presence added to her life. Detachment removes the emotional noise and leaves behind clarity. You're not withdrawing to punish her, you're withdrawing to return to yourself. And when a man becomes emotionally self sufficient, he becomes magnetic because attraction grows where there is freedom, not pressure. And when you detach without becoming cold, she doesn't feel abandoned. She feels the silence where your energy used to be, and that silence speaks louder than words. Most men think that if a woman pulls away, the correct response is to confront her, question her, or demand an explanation. They want clarity, reassurance, and emotional closure. What they don't understand is that confrontation satisfies the ego but destroys attraction. When you react with frustration or emotional pressure, you give her an escape. She can label you as needy, dramatic, or overwhelming and mentally move on without ever missing you. The goal is not to make her feel guilty, angry, or defensive. The goal is to let her feel the absence of your emotional presence. Missing someone doesn't come from conflict, it comes from contrast. It comes from the sudden removal of something that felt stable, grounding, and familiar. That's why absence works only when it's calm and clean, not loud and emotional. When you disappear in anger, she feels relief. When you withdraw to punish her, she feels controlled. But when you step back with self respect and emotional composure, her mind has no clear story to tell itself. There's no argument to justify the distance. There's no drama to blame. There's just space. And in that space, her emotions begin to speak. Anger is loud, absence is quiet. And quiet forces reflection. If she senses resentment in your silence, she will emotionally detach faster. But if your silence carries peace, confidence, and stability, it unsettles her. She starts replaying moments, conversations, the way you made her feel safe without trying to own her. She begins to compare how things feel now versus how they felt when you were fully present but not chasing. This is why controlling your emotional reactions is critical. The moment you show irritation, disappointment, or insecurity, you hand her emotional leverage. You communicate that she still has power over your state of mind. But when you remain centered and unbothered, the dynamic shifts. She becomes the one trying to understand the change. Let her feel the absence, not your emotions. Don't send long messages explaining how hurt you are. Don't post indirect signals. Don't withdraw and then check to see if she noticed. True absence has no performance, it has no audience. It's quiet and grounded. When you stop reacting, she starts feeling. When you stop chasing, she starts wondering. When you stop filling every emotional gap, her mind fills it for you. That's when missing begins, not because you forced it, because you allowed it. A woman doesn't miss a man because he demands space. She misses him because his presence mattered, and the only way she realizes that is when it's no longer available on demand. This also protects your dignity. You're not shrinking yourself to keep her. You're not emotionally bleeding in hopes she stays. You're choosing restraint, and restraint is powerful because it communicates value without saying a word. The paradox is this: the less emotional noise you create, the louder your absence becomes, the more controlled you are, the more uncontrollable her thoughts become. She starts questioning why you didn't react the way other men do, why you didn't chase, why you didn't break. And those questions pull her back mentally before she ever reaches out physically. Absence rooted in self respect doesn't push her away, it invites her emotions to step forward on their own. And when she finally does feel the distance, it won't be your anger she remembers, it will be your calm. Most men don't lose attraction because they did something wrong. They lose it because their entire focus slowly collapses onto one person. Their routines bend, their priorities shift, their energy starts waiting, and without realizing it, they communicate something deeply unattractive, that their life is on pause until she responds. Attention seeking doesn't feel needy at first, but over time it drains desire because it removes direction. Attraction grows when a woman feels like she's entering a man's world, not becoming the center of it. When your life is structure, purpose, and momentum, your presence feels earned, not available on demand. Purpose creates gravity, and gravity pulls attention naturally without effort. When you stop chasing attention and start living with intention, everything changes. You don't need to announce that you're busy. You don't need to prove anything. Your consistency speaks for you. You wake up with a routine. You move toward goals. You protect your time. And because your energy is no longer hovering, she begins to feel the difference. Women don't miss men who wait around, they miss men who were moving forward, men whose lives felt alive. When you're focused on your growth, your conversations change. You're not trying to impress, you're not filling silence, you're sharing selectively. Your words come from experience, not anticipation. That creates depth without effort. Purpose also stabilizes your emotions. When your fulfillment comes from multiple sources: work, discipline, progress, self respect, you're no longer emotionally dependent on her validation. Her texts don't control your mood, her distance doesn't derail your day, and that emotional independence is magnetic because it feels safe and strong at the same time. This doesn't mean you become unavailable or distant on purpose. It means your availability is a choice, not a habit. When you give attention, it's intentional. When you're present, you're fully present. But you don't linger. You don't overextend. You return to your life without guilt or explanation. That balance creates desire because it feels natural, not forced. A man with purpose doesn't chase clarity, he doesn't chase reassurance. He doesn't chase outcomes. He allows connections to grow at a pace that aligns with his life, not against it. And when a woman senses that she feels invited, not pressured, this is where missing begins. Not when you disappear, but when your energy is no longer constantly accessible. She starts noticing gaps, not empty gaps, but meaningful ones. She wonders what you're doing, where your focus is, why you seem fulfilled without her approval. And that curiosity pulls her thoughts toward you. Purpose also filters behavior. You stop tolerating mixed signals because you're not starving for attention. You don't chase someone who's unsure because your time is value. That self respect shifts the dynamic immediately. She feels that you're not trying to be chosen, you're choosing how you invest yourself. Most importantly, living with purpose reminds you who you were before the emotional attachment took over. You reclaim your center, and when a man is centered, he doesn't need to manipulate attraction, he embodies it. Women don't miss words, they miss energy, and the energy of a man who is building something, moving forward, and grounded in his own life lingers long after he's gone. Because when you stop seeking attention and start living fully, your absence stops feeling empty and starts feeling impossible to ignore. Most attraction fades not because a man lacks confidence, but because his emotional state becomes predictable and easily influenced. When a woman can sense that her distance makes you anxious, her silence unsettles you, or her mixed signals throw you off balance, something shifts. She may not consciously analyze it, but emotionally, she feels unsafe leading the connection. Attraction doesn't grow where instability lies. Being emotionally grounded doesn't mean suppressing feelings, it means mastering them. It means your inner state remains steady whether she leans in or pulls away. When your emotions are no longer reactive, you stop handing control of your peace to someone else. And that calm, unshakable energy is deeply attractive because it communicates strength without effort. An emotionally grounded man doesn't rush to fix discomfort. He allows moments to pass without filling them with explanations. He doesn't need immediate reassurance to feel secure. If something feels off, he observes instead of panicking. He listens instead of defending. And because of this, his presence feels safe, not heavy. When a woman tests boundaries through distance, inconsistency, or silence, she's often unconsciously checking emotional stability, not to manipulate, but to see if the ground beneath her is solid. If you react emotionally, chase clarity, or try to regain control, you fail that test without realizing it. But when you remain calm, your stability becomes undeniable. This is where the dynamic flips. When she sees that her behavior no longer shakes you, she begins to feel the imbalance. She expects a reaction, and when it doesn't come, her emotions step in to fill the gap. She starts wondering why you're unaffected, why you're not trying to pull her back, why your energy feels the same. Emotional grounding also removes emotional bargaining. You're no longer adjusting your behavior to keep her interested. You're not walking on eggshells. You're not sacrificing self respect for connection. You show up honestly, calmly, and consistently, and consistency builds trust faster than intensity ever could. This kind of stability doesn't chase attention, it attracts it. When your emotional state is steady, conversations slow down naturally. There's more listening, more depth, less performance. She feels like she can relax around you because there's no emotional chaos to manage. Many men confuse emotional grounding with emotional withdrawal. They think being unbothered means being distant or cold, but true grounding is warm and present. You still care, you still engage, you just don't collapse emotionally when things feel uncertain. You remain open without being attached to outcomes. This also protects you from manipulation, intentional or not. When your emotions are stable, guilt, silence, or mixed signals lose their power. You don't need to punish. You don't need to confront. You simply remain aligned with yourself, and that alignment is felt. Over time, this creates attraction rooted in respect. She doesn't feel like she can control you, but she also doesn't feel shut out. She feels held by your calm, and people miss what makes them feel safe. Emotional grounding makes your absence heavier because your presence was steady, predictable in the best way. And when that grounding energy is no longer there, it's deeply felt because the man who cannot be shaken becomes the man who cannot be forgotten. Most men enter relationships trying to be chosen. They adjust their behavior, soften their boundaries, and tolerate uncertainty just to keep a connection alive. They believe love is something they have to earn through effort, patience, and sacrifice. But attraction doesn't grow from self abandonment, it grows from self respect. The moment you start seeking approval, you quietly lower your value, not in her eyes first, but in your own. And women feel that shift immediately. When you're trying to be chosen, your actions become reactive. You say yes when you mean no. You stay quiet when something bothers you. You accept mixed signals because you're afraid of losing access. That fear leaks into everything you do. Becoming the standard means you stop auditioning for affection. You don't chase validation. You don't negotiate your worth. You decide what behavior you accept and what you don't, and you enforce it calmly. There's no drama in this. No speeches, no ultimatums, just alignment. A man who is the standard doesn't threaten to leave, he's prepared to. And that quiet certainty changes everything. You're no longer afraid of walking away because you know your value doesn't depend on one person's choice. That mindset alone shifts the entire dynamic. When you stop proving yourself, you also stop overgiving. You give when it's mutual. You invest when it's reciprocated. You pull back when energy isn't matched, not to punish, but to stay true to yourself. And that consistency builds respect because it shows emotional maturity. This is where attraction deepens. Women don't chase men who beg for clarity or reassurance. They chase men who are clear within themselves. When your boundaries are firm but calm, she feels the structure. She knows where she stands, not because you told her, but because your actions are aligned. Being the standard also means you don't rush connections. You don't try to lock things down out of fear. You allow things to unfold naturally. If she's unsure, you don't convince her. You allow her to feel her uncertainty while you remain steady. That space gives her the freedom to choose, and choice creates desire. Approval seeking creates pressure. Standards create polarity. When you're grounded in your standards, you're not attached to outcomes. You're attached to integrity, and integrity is magnetic because it's rare. This doesn't make you rigid or unemotional. You still care deeply. You still show affection, but you don't sacrifice your self respect to maintain closeness. You understand that connection without respect never lasts. When a woman senses that you are comfortable being alone rather than disrespected, something shifts inside her. She starts measuring herself against your standard instead of you measuring yourself against her reactions. And that reversal is powerful. She doesn't feel controlled. She feels challenged in a healthy way. She feels invited to rise, not pressured to stay. And people miss what challenges them to be better. When you become the standard, you don't chase love, you allow love to meet you at your level. And when you're willing to walk away from what doesn't honor you, you become unforgettable to those who didn't. Most men try to rush emotional outcomes. They want clarity now, reassurance now, commitment now, and when they don't get it, they push, explain, or pressure the connection forward. What they don't realize is that emotions don't respond to force, they respond to space. Attraction, longing, and missing all grow in silence, not urgency. Allowing her emotions to catch up naturally means you stop trying to control how she feels, and when she feels it, you don't demand answers. You don't ask where you stand every time the energy shifts. You trust the process, and more importantly, you trust yourself enough to wait without anxiety. When you remove urgency, you remove pressure, and pressure is the fastest way to kill desire. A woman needs room to process her emotions privately. She needs moments of reflection where she realizes what your presence added to her life. If you're constantly checking in, Asking or seeking reassurance, you interrupt that process. You replace her emotional experience with your need for certainty. Patience is not passive, it's controlled strength. It's the ability to remain grounded while uncertainty exists. When you stay calm and consistent without pushing for outcomes, her emotions are free to move toward you on their own timeline. And when feelings develop without pressure, they feel real because they were chosen, not negotiated. This is where missing becomes powerful. When you don't chase closure, she keeps thinking. When you don't force conversations, her emotions keep circling back. When you don't demand answers, she starts finding them herself. Your restraint gives her mind space to wander, and it often wanders back to you. Many men sabotage the stage by breaking the silence too early. They reach out just to ease their own discomfort. They reopen conversations that didn't need reopening. They try to secure the connection before it's ready. And in doing so, they steal the very opportunity for longing to grow. Allowing emotions to catch up also shows confidence. It communicates that you're not afraid of losing her because you're secure in who you are. That security is attractive because it feels solid and calm. You're not rushing her choice, you're respecting it. This doesn't mean you disappear completely or play games. You remain open and authentic. If she reaches out, you engage warmly. If she expresses interest, you respond honestly. You don't chase, you let actions speak louder than intentions. Time reveals everything. If her feelings deepen, it happens naturally. If they don't, you haven't lost yourself trying to force something that wasn't aligned. Either way, you win because you stayed true to your standards and your self respect. The most powerful connections are built slowly. They grow from freedom, not fear. And when a woman realizes that you gave her the space to feel instead of pressure and to decide, that memory stays with her. Because what grows without force doesn't fade easily. And the man who allowed that space is the one she never stops thinking about.